And here is the Writer's Almanac for Sunday, March the 7th, 2021. It was on this day in 1923 that Robert Frost's poem Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening was published in the New Republic magazine, one of the best-known poems in all of American literature. The woods are lovely, dark, and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. He'd stayed up all night working on a different poem called New Hampshire, and then went outside, watched the sunrise, felt pretty good, and went back in the house, and he wrote Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, though there was no snow. He wrote it, he said, almost without lifting the pencil from the paper. 1994, on this day, the Supreme Court ruled that parody can be protected by the Fair Use Clause of the Copyright Act of 1976. It's the anniversary of the Civil Rights March from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama, 1965. 600 civil rights activists left Selma to march 54 miles to the state capitol. They only got 6 blocks before state and local lawmen attacked them with dogs and billy clubs and tear gas. They made it to Montgomery 2 weeks later, and by the time they got there, they were 25,000 strong. Here's a poem for today by Wyatt Prunty, entitled Cold Watercolor. We saw the birds jockeying for the feeder. Inside, the networks fed us New Year's Day. And then there was the snow, in thick, raw blots down past a row of windows where it caught, turning the sills to ridges, as outside the streets, houses, and yards thickened from their named and numbered ways into a watercolor, unreadably white. And all the while, the manic snow descending, sometimes glazed against a pane, but mostly falling from itself into itself under a low, bruised, and indefinite sky, until the things I watched to measure change, a recent stump, raised flower beds, porch steps, had disappeared, with the snow still falling and the gray January light fading, fusing the trees and houses in one shade. Suddenly, a shadow now, beyond the glass that mirrored us with looking out, ourselves out there, watches and rings reversed, as reporters had the years reversed, we said, looking out, seeing us, looking in. Later, the snow stopped and clouds cleared. Our local ceiling shrank to absolute. Standing outside, we swayed with gazing up, swayed because the stars were high and deep. How odd that something overhead was deep, and still the snow's thick watercolor white. And then there were the brisk goodbyes, closing an afternoon and evening spent in the snow's knee-deep and numberless house, where the usual wishes being said, the door left standing wide, its angled light fanning the stalled, abandoned plow. We let the buried street run on ahead, as following our shadows from the porch, we stepped out of the light into our whitened way. Cold Watercolor, a poem by Wyatt Prunty, from The Run of the House, published by the Johns Hopkins University Press, and used by permission here on the Writer's Almanac, funded by donations from listeners like you, now available on PRX for distribution by your local radio station. Be well, do good work, and keep in touch.